Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Business Spring Clean, the second instalment of the Power Up tutorial series. Our goal is to provide tourism businesses in the NT a space to upskill as we unpack topics that have an ongoing relevance for your business. So these weekly webinars are brought to you by the Business Enterprise Development Team. Stephen Miles from Tourism Top End and myself, Anna Dakin from Central Australia, will be your hosts. And the series is structured around the Business Development Programme's 9-pillar model, which is a tool to help businesses self-identify their maturity in a range of areas necessary to running a successful business. Stephen and I are keen to get you acquainted with the programme. So if you'd like to know more about it, you can drop us a line after the webinar. Our contact details will be on a slide at the end of the session. Before we get going, there's a bit of housekeeping. So to create a safe and confidential space during the webinar, we're invoking the Chatham House rules. This means that you're free to use the information you learn in the webinar, but you can't reveal the identity or affiliation of speakers or participants outside of the webinar. So this enables us all to have an open and frank discussion and feel safe to both ask and answer questions. If you do have any questions for our presenters, feel free to write them in the chat area and we'll endeavour to have them answered before the end of the session. And this webinar is going to consist of two 20-minute presentations, each followed by a Q&A. So the first will be by Tony Wood and the second by Grant Whan. Tony and Grant are from BECNT, the Business Enterprise Centre, and most of you will know them already, but for those of you who don't, Tony, would you like to say a little bit about what you, Grant, and the team do?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Hi, everybody. Business Enterprise Centre, the NT, we support small to medium businesses in developing. We actually help people make money and become more profitable and better managed businesses. That's our key roles, I suppose. We're an independent body, but we're funded by Tourism NT and Department of Trade, Business and Innovation to deliver support programs for local businesses. Grant and I are both long-term Territorians and have had businesses, managed businesses, run businesses for a long time in the Territory. So we have, we believe we have good experience in working with small businesses. It's a free service, it's ongoing support. We provide a structured mentoring process to help you develop skills and help you build your businesses into a better frame.
Awesome. Grant, do you have anything to add to that?
No, look, I think Tony's pretty well got it covered there for us. But just exciting to be on here today and get to talk to everybody.
Beautiful. All right, Tony, if you'd like to take it away with the first part of the presentation.
Okay. When we first were asked to do this, Grant and I sort of got our heads together and had a bit of a chat about it, and we thought probably a good idea as we're starting to move into businesses reopening, it was a good idea to focus on maybe a more short-term focus of how things could be affected, what things you need to think about between now and, say, the next six to 8 months of trade, realising, of course, that we're probably going to be just looking at local MT clients and customers coming to us. So we thought at the moment the Business Enterprise Centre is developing a health checklist, which should be available by the end of this week. And Grant and I selected 4 key areas we thought would be prudent to talk about in today's meeting. And those things are, from my point of view, I'll be talking about cash flows and supply chain. And then Grant will talk about HR and marketing. From a point of view, we're not going to go into a lot of depth in those things because they're fairly extensive subjects. But what we want to cover off is some of the things that you may need to think about right now in getting reopening or reopening your business, and then answer some questions if there's any questions to come off the floor from there. So jumping in, we've got a survival, revival, growth slide there. You notice we've sort of struck a line through survival. That's to we've got through some of those, or the majority of businesses have got through that really devastating stage of everything stopping suddenly. And now we're starting to get into a revival mode, which is about thinking about how we're going to get the business working. What are the things that business owners want to do? And this is part of the program that we're working with Tourism NT, the Tourism Fast Track program, and that's to help people get some skills, have a look at their goals, what they want to achieve, and then we then assist them to get those things done through a mentoring process and a structured process of education and training and bringing in additional support where needed. One of the things I want to talk about now is cash flows. And cash flows is a really important area that probably gets left behind sometimes in small businesses. And it's fundamental right now because we've come from stopping business for whatever reason, and now we're starting to commence and start to move forward. And there's a few things that I identify with that is understanding your ability to service your current debt level, for right now. And then how do you work through those things in the next 3 to 6 months, in understanding what the market is going to deliver for you, what your processes will be. From that point of view, it's take into account that you may have some rent reduction in place with your landlord. You may have some loans that are on hold through your bank or whatever it may be. But as we start to open up and as we start to trade, will those rent reductions, will your landlord come back to you and say, well, that's great, I need to start increasing your rent now because I've got debts to pay as well. And are you prepared in your business cycle and your understanding those debts of bringing that extra charges in when you may not be trading as well as what you were, say, in a normal year? So it's keeping aware of your current debt and your future debt that is really important, particularly as you're restarting your business from probably a zero start right now.
Tony, building on from that would be having a chat as well with those touch points in the sense of your landlords or other entities that you're involved with who you've got these agreements with in place right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it is making sure you're communicating with those entities to understand that, hey, your landlord in a month's time is going to increase your rent by another 20% because he's giving you a reduction, and then then in advance that, hey, this is going to have an impact on my business in a month's time. I need to keep track of that, and you can put that in there. And I'll talk about doing a cash flow projection shortly, and that's really important that you understand those things in working out that cash flow projection. I guess your accounting records and are they up to date? This is a tough one because it comes back to your relationship with your accountant and your bookkeeper. If you use those services, and it's understanding where your business sits right now. Do you look at your profit and losses of your business on a regular basis? And from this, where we sit right now in this situation, it's really important that you keep track of your profit and losses in your business and understand the various things that can impact your business, your fixed costs and your variable costs. And having a good accountant and a good relationship with those people means that you can question those things, that you understand what they're talking about, and that you're keeping an eye on the bottom line of your business on a regular basis, because this is a space that none of us have been in, and a lot of businesses are reopening and restarting from pretty well zero right now into a market where we know that it's probably not going to be as vibrant and as fruitful as what it normally is for this time of the year. The other thing there too, which is a bit of a hobby of mine, a hobby horse of mine, is making sure that you understand your tax and you're up to date with the ATO and understand where they're sitting with things. There's no problems with it, talking to the ATO and finding those things out. And it's just asking the questions about your PAYG if you have staff, or you're paying your GST, BAS reports, where make sure that if you can't fulfil those arrangements, then you talk to the tax office. Understanding your super payments for your staff if you're employing staff. If they've been laid off now, when does their super kick back in again, and do you have to cover those costs? So from an accounting point of view, it's really important for business owners to be across those aspects on a weekly basis. Must make sure you're covered off on those things and understand the language that say the ATO use and your accountants use, and ask those questions. Ask them questions. If you're an accountant, bookkeeper, that's what you're paying them for. So don't be afraid to ask questions and get answers to that. Now, a documented cash flow projection. Now, this encompasses pretty well the other two subjects as well. So it's really taking into account your fixed and variable business costs and understanding that. Now, that's your rent, your insurances, your loans, things like that. But variable costs can be fuel, food, buying in food if you're a restaurant or a hospitality industry, alcohol, whatever that is. So they're your variable costs, and understanding what they are and having a projection in there that outlines, look, we think we're going to be doing this amount over the next 3 months, 6 months. And that's very hard right now because we don't know what the market's going to deliver back to us, I guess. But it's having that readily available so that you can snap to it and change it quickly, and understand how that impacts on your bottom line of your business over let's say over a month or over 2 weeks, even if you want to a week. And it gives you some clarity on how you're going to manage your cash flows, but your finances for your business for this period. One of the things that I've always worked on with businesses is understanding break-even points. That can be hard to calculate in some industries, but if you've got a basic plan of what is my break-even points, particularly at the moment where you could have some really high highs in the next couple of weeks with trade, and then you get a sudden drop-off, and then it kicks back in again. So we can expect that there may be a lot of surging going on in marketplace. So understanding your break-even points is a really good way of looking over the last, let's say you look at it over the last 4 weeks. 3 of those weeks we were just on break-even. We had one really good week. So you start to understand, okay, how many people do we need to have through? How does it work? What's the average spend? You start thinking about those ways of just managing the financial flow of your business, and then that sort of moves into a financial planning. This is a bit hard to work on for that, because you have to understand what is the best case scenario for us. What's the ideal? It's probably getting back to where it was, say, same time last year. What is the worst case? Is, hey, we're only just breaking even. What do we need to look at now to either increase or improve that? What's our costs? So if you've got that, a short-term plan, a financial plan on that, that will help you understand those processes, and then you can start managing a money line, I guess, on ups and downs. And if you're getting too many downs, okay, what are the things that we can change or fix that will improve that bottom line for us?
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, I find that really encouraging to have it kind of distilled down into a couple of dot points for us to take away and at least use it as a reference point. And obviously we're top lining the topics today, but also they can meet with Business Enterprise Centre NT, and this is kind of your bread and butter of what you guys do day in, day out, and obviously walk with and assist the businesses to make sure that each of these points are being touched for your business and also looking forward from that.
Yep.
Is that right?
That's exactly right. And look, feel free to contact Grant or I or the VEC offices in Alice and Darwin, because that exactly what Stephen said is our role is to support you businesses in giving you. We do knowledge transfer. And if we can't, if say you ask me a question, I can't do it, I'll tap into other resources or the rest of the team. We'll often talk about specific client needs and throw it around the table, and then we'll try and work out a solution or come back with a solution or some guidance for our clients to get that. We'll do one-on-one meetings. We have strategic planning processes that we go through when we get to that stage with the client. We can assist with business planning, cash flow projection. The thing to remember is we actually don't do the work for you, but what we do is help you get the job done. That's our catch cry, I guess, if you like. We don't do the work, but we'll help you get it done.
You're essentially providing a bit of a structure there for businesses to follow, help navigate a bit of the stress, and just help people to order thoughts and things like that.
Yeah, and that's it's the nuts and bolts of a lot of I call it the back of office. It's that, it's the important parts that have to happen before you actually start to trade, is understanding those cash flows, and then your supply chains as well, which is what I want to talk about next, is going through. We all know what supply chain is, and we all do it in a different way, but some of the things that we just wanted to brief on today, and we can go more in depth with individual clients on this as well, if people need that service. Is having understanding your reorder points and your stock list, and having that documented so that everybody, if the owner of the business is not there or the manager's not there, that somebody else can walk into the stock room and pick up a sheet of paper and know exactly what it is that needs to be ordered, what those levels may be, what's the minimums and the maximums. That's really an important phase as well, so that prevents under-ordering and over-ordering in a lot of cases. And just reverting back to cash flows, it's really important that you probably don't over-order stock at this stage, because you don't want to be caught spending too much money buying stock in if you're not turning it over fast enough. It's that turnover point as well is really, really important, particularly as we're reopening business right now. And it's I guess most people in the hospitality industry would be used to having those stock levels and understanding that, but it's right now, because we are reopening. Probably many people are starting with zero stock levels. So do you just jump back into what you used to hold and then manage that as trade eventuates over the next 3 or 4 months, so you get some patterns in there? And an important part is your business prepared for the highs, the surges that we may get particularly as restrictions, more and more restrictions are lifted. And have you got that ability to go quickly and order more or talk to your suppliers? The other thing is having a really good relationship with the supplier, and being able to order stock and know that you're going to get it. You can order it today, you're going to get it in 2 days, or it's going to take 4 days to get there, is really important for you back in the stock room when the people are making those orders. So it's ordering. Don't leave it to the last minute and say, oh, I need more of this, and find out that you can't get it for another 2 weeks because you've then left yourself exposed. So it's understanding what that timely manner is and conducting that conversation with your supplier.
And Tony, would you agree that it's probably high time right now, if you haven't already, to contact your suppliers to make sure that they've got the stock themselves, what their levels are at, and also how they're faring, because obviously it's a flow-on effect for your business.
That's right.
And it's good to keep tabs on how things are going, because obviously supply then will flow onto your business.
Yeah, exactly, Stephen. And that's a really important thing, is to understand that your suppliers, how much have they got in their stock room, because they're probably going to get hit very hard in the next few weeks. Have they got enough supply, and have they got continuity of supply of your products to supply you when you put your hand up and say you need something? So it's again, it gets back to that relationship you have with your supplier, be it they a big supplier or just the local fish market next, down the road. It's understanding what their capacity is to provide you that service and provide you the stock that you need. And another thing there too is having access to different suppliers. So you might have a very good arrangement with somebody, with a single supplier, but if they can't, have you got a plan B in place? And are you able to manage the fact that some of your costs of products may change because you can't deal with your main supplier who gives you a great discount, but you can get that product from somebody else, but it's going to cost you more. How quickly and how can you react to that in your sell price and bring that into your business without it impacting too much on your bottom line? And that's again understanding your relationships with various suppliers. Not having all your eggs in one basket sometimes is a great way to go with that type of scenario. And the other one there is alternative logistics contingency plans. That's a bloody mouthful, isn't it? Jesus. I think that really is just, if you have a transport company that brings your goods in, if they can't get it to you in time, have you got someone else you can tap into, or another organisation that you can tap into that can deliver those products to you at the right time, the right price? Again, freight costs, bringing in your freight costs if they change because you're using a different supplier, you have to be able to bring that into your business and fit that into your costs and manage that very quickly, because again, it'll have a detrimental effect on your bottom line of your business over this short-term period. So it's a difficult space in understanding the fact that we really don't know how the market's going to surge and react right now, and that we are really looking at just the local market, working with our locals. But that's a great opportunity as well, because we get people back into supporting local businesses. That's got to be a positive thing down the road for everybody, I think. Yeah.
And because obviously supply is determined mostly by demand, given our stopping in the recent months, trying to get back on board of what is the demand is kind of unknown, and so making sure that we don't overbuy or underbuy, and so it's going to be a thinking on your feet, juggling act to make sure that you've got some things almost ordered or almost coming, and but not obviously biting off too much to make sure that your cash flow, as per the first slide is.
And and that's right. It's understanding that you don't want a whole room full of stock if you're not moving it, because sooner or later you're going to have to pay for that, and that's going to create problems on your cash flows if trade isn't working as your trade isn't coming through as the way you thought it was going to be. And that comes back again to your planning and understanding your cash flow requirements in that short 3 to 6 month period.
Thanks, Tony.
Yep.
That was really, really good. And if you do have any questions, guys, online, feel free to chuck them in now, because we've got a space for questions for Tony right now. Obviously, if you do have questions, please do put them in the chat, and we'll answer them as we can. And also when Grant shares, after that, we'll also have a Q&A time. So if you do have any questions, please write them down. But let's head across to Grant right now. Grant, for your presentation, what's next?
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Just want to check. I had a few people saying they couldn't hear me properly earlier. Am I coming through clear enough there?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you.
Yep, you're right. Excellent. All right. So yeah, thanks for that, and g'day to everybody out there. Hope everyone's going as well as can be expected, I guess, with the current situation we're in. Following on from Tony, we're just discussing 4 key areas, I guess, as we move into that recovery phase, which is going to be different for everybody. So Tony's just covered the cash flow and the supply chains and so on. So I'm just going to touch on now a bit about HR and marketing, and we'll start on that HR area. Probably not the sexiest of subjects out there, but we'll get started with that.
Hey Grant, just before we do, we've had a couple of people post in on the comment section to say that you are a little bit quiet. I'm not sure if there is a way to turn up your volume, or I guess a bit closer to it.
Yeah, it is right here. I don't know if that's much different.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
That's better. All right, I'll try and hold this throughout, shall I? Yeah, no, I'm not sure what the go is with that. So, look, first off, just to touch on this HR side of it, and look, I guess for the micro businesses out there that may not employ any staff, it's not as big an issue for them, but certainly for those out there that do have staff, it's certainly been a really, really tough time as of late. Don't have to tell anyone dealing with staff just how tough it is in times of uncertainty to deal with HR, and especially now that we've got with what's happening with COVID-19. And the reality is, many people out there at the moment are being tasked with making some really difficult decisions, either cutting down staff hours or totally cutting out staff. You've got to be aware of your bottom line. If you don't have the money, you can't afford the staff. But at the same time, you've got to show compassion and some empathy and so forth to your staff as well. So it's a complicated balance. We get that, but and it's tough to make those decisions. I guess for years, we always tell our staff just how important they are to your business. Now those staff are coming back saying, "Prove it." And within tourism, let's face it, everyone dealing with staff within tourism, they become your family. They're part of your family. They're not just staff. They're a part of the journey that you're on. Get the balance wrong now, and you may not get them back. So it is a complicated issue.
Yeah, and difficult decision making for the operator, for their staff, especially long-term staff.
Absolutely, and I don't envy anyone in that situation. No hard and fast answers here, but we don't envy anyone there. I just want to say we do empathise with you there. First part, I guess, we've got is identifying required staff levels and so forth. And this can be a relatively easy thing to do when all the planets align. In that perfect world, you know what's coming in, the staff levels you need. It's probably even quite easy right at the moment for people because you may not require staff in that sense. But where are you going to be in 1 month, 3 months, 6 months' time as those restrictions ease? So if people haven't been thinking of that yet, it's really now time to be assessing this and thinking about developing a plan of re-establishing those staff levels. When we come through the other side of COVID-19, it's going to be staged for most people, so it's going to vary for most businesses out there. things to keep on the top of your mind that can assist in this process as you're doing it. You need to be aware of industry sentiment. Who will or who can travel at the moment, and are these people, are they going to be your market? Can they be your market? You need to be aware of these things. And also you need to keep track of those restrictions, easing restrictions, or heavens forbid, increased restrictions. They're all going to play a key role in determining the levels in which your staff come back. So as far as the industry sentiment goes, Tourism NT or Tourism Central Australia, TTE, depending on the region you're in, I know you guys can get hold of that data and that industry sentiment for business, for operators. So I just want to say, keep in touch with the industry bodies to keep aware of what that sentiment is.
Hey, Grant, I might just jump in just here.
Yep.
I've also had some more comments from viewers to say, if you could just hold your microphone a bit closer, that would be helpful.
How's that?
I think that's much better. Thank you.
It is? Okay. All right. So, okay. So what do we got next? So upskilling, cross-skilling, reskilling, if you like. It's now also, it's a really good time to be looking at upskilling, and it's been really pleasing to see quite a number of operators out there have been saying that's exactly what they're doing. They're saying we've got some downtime, so we're going to be upskilling ourselves and staff, especially in that digital space. So that's really good to see. Cross-skilling is also another really a vital role, I guess, to play in that recovery phase, and then going on beyond that. An example of this, a simple example, but a good example is attractions. For example, they may have, you've got your tour component, you've got your retail component, maybe even a food component to your particular business. So do your staff focus and specialise in one area, or have they been trained and are they versatile that they can work in all areas of your business? So that can certainly help as you're coming into that recovery phase. And this upskilling, cross-skilling, it doesn't just have to focus in that digital world, in that digital space. We're talking on HR at the moment, so for management and so forth, HR certainly comes to mind, and now is probably a good time to be looking at ways of increasing your knowledge in that area. Safety, finance, marketing, these are all other areas that you can be looking at the moment as well. As far as your staff go, do you have guides out there that can help you with that bookings process? Or maybe you've got staff that have got other skills that they've brought to your business. You could use them for helping with bookkeeping, accounts, or whatever it may be. So what other skills do your staff have, and how can you utilise these and recognise these in your business? I guess essentially, don't underestimate the value of your business in upskilling and cross-skilling and so forth. And it's not just about staff, it's about yourself and your own professional development as well.
Hey, Grant, I'm not sure if your finger's over the microphone just now. Potentially we can.
I hope not. Am I fading out, am I?
On and off, but I think that's a little bit better now. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Bit of a pain this, isn't it? Look, job descriptions and staff contracts, quite often people's contracts, they get renewed every year or whenever they're needing to be renewed. But the job descriptions seem to get forgotten about quite a bit. People, they start a job, they have a job description, 5 years later, their position, what they're doing's changed, but the description's pretty well the same. In light of everything that's happened in 2020, there's been so many responsibilities that may have changed with your staff. We're talking about cross-skilling, upskilling, and so forth. So it's also a really good time now just to be reviewing these, the job descriptions, especially as you come into that recovery phase. So something else to be aware of. Work health and safety. Look, I'm saying it's a good time to do everything, and it is a good time to be doing all this stuff if you can at the moment. You need to make sure your plans, your policies, and everything are up to date, and that they're relevant with the time that we're in as well. Includes all areas, but I guess an example that I want to use, I don't know about yourselves, but I've noticed a lot of retailers out there, a lot of shops and so forth, they have designated entry and exit points now where prior to COVID-19, those points were one in the same. You came in, you went out the same way. So with this in place, how's it affected the evacuation, plans, procedures, or diagrams that are up there? If it has affected it, have your staff been advised? Are they trained on the changes and where required? is it visible to your customer? So all those things you need to be looking at and making sure that you've got that there in place. So times are change, policies, procedures, requirements, these are changing with it. Make sure that you're doing everything you can to ensure the health, the safety of your staff, your customer, and of course your business. Importantly, make sure you stay compliant. Which brings us to the next thing there. The COVID-19 safety checklist seems like just another bit of compliance that we're being forced to have to get. The reality is, if you haven't got it, you should be getting it. NT government have stated that if you're an NT business that you've been impacted with COVID restrictions, you need to have this to meet your requirements around the key principles of physical distancing and hygiene practices. So get out there and get this. I think there's 4 different checklists for different business types. You only need to do the ones that are relevant, but don't look at it as another bit of compliance, I guess. Look at it as a way of promoting what you're doing to your customer to make sure that you've got their best interests in mind as well. You're saying to your customer that you're compliant with the new regulations, you've got their welfare in mind, and you're fully aware of what you need to do to look after them. So use it for your customer, to promote to your customer, that is, in what you're doing, preparing for their return.
So Grant, thank you for that. And just to summarise for those also who are still having some audio difficulties with hearing you, it's a time and has been a time to work on your business instead of in your business. And so hopefully you have been doing that over the last couple of weeks and almost months now. But also I think looking forward, it's almost a time of having to juggle all of these business, human resources, essential documentation and compliant documents. But then also juggling, am I operating again? Am I opening up and looking forward, so then you can have the cash flow coming in to kind of balance your business.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It is. It's a really strange stage right now. And it is exactly that. Is we've got to manage getting all those things in place. They're working on your business or on your business, but now your business is starting to operate again. So it's how do we move forward with bringing that into how we're going to change? So it's a good point.
Yeah, I really like what you were saying about maintaining relationships with employees and communication there. Right now, it seems like a time where a lot of us are feeling quite uncertain about the future. And there's definitely a balance between communicating that honesty with the people in your business about how you're feeling, and also providing stable leadership. And Grant, your advice on just reviewing job descriptions sounds like a really good way of just confirming those communication channels and identity sort of requirements, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Stuff. All right. So we'll move into the next area, shall we? So,
and Grant, if possible, obviously just a reminder to keep that as close as possible, please.
Yeah. So is it fading out for you as well, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, not sure.
Potentially you have to talk directly into it. That's what I'm seeing, but let's see.
All right. That's what you're seeing, or you're okay. Yeah, let's see how we go with this, shall we? We'll get into the marketing side of it. Certainly a little bit more sexier than the HR stuff and that compliance stuff. Okay, so look, I was actually having a look on before to see who was going to be online today, and really some really good quality product out there. And look, pretty much most of the guys out there, you know, you've got a really good idea on your traditional key markets and so forth that you have, and over the years, I know you've run some really various campaigns, I guess, that have to the most part reached your intended audience. Now, I guess more than ever, certainly in the 30 odd years that I've been working in this industry, it's vital to know exactly who your market is, and probably more importantly, what market is actually available to you right now, and then potentially in 3-6 months' time. You know, the reality is for most right now, it's probably not your traditional markets. You know, I don't think any of us are anticipating our border to open anytime too soon, and especially those international markets. So initially, dare I say it, we're looking at a local market and then moving on to maybe an intrastate market. Those out there that are in the biosecurity zones, it's even a little bit tougher than that. And after talking about local and intrastate markets, I can actually hear everybody out there going, well, you know, we don't get a local market. Or I can hear the operators from the centre going, you know, that mob in the top end, they won't travel down here into the south and so forth. And maybe that's been the case, but we keep hearing that we're in a different world, and maybe it's time to readdress this now. You know, with the restrictions in place, so many people are looking at, you know, what can they do to get out into their own backyards? Where can they go? And so to speak. So rather than what's across the border. So maybe we will see a little bit more of an intrastate market this season, basically because that may be all we'll have. You know, and in determining your target markets, you also really need to have a clear understanding of your own value propositions. You know, what do you offer that your market's actually looking for? What differentiates you from your competitor and makes your business stand out? Everyone's got unique selling points, you know, what are they? Everyone has them, but unfortunately not everyone in business out there actually identifies them and promotes to them. So if you haven't already, these are some things that you really need to be identifying to help you align into getting into those key target markets that are either going to be available now or that are out there. Look, there's also a number of programs and tools that have been developed to assist in this process in determining your value proposition and then how it best aligns to reach your markets. And just a plug for the BEC, you know, we can and we'd actually, you know, we'd love to help people in this area. So certainly let us know if you need assistance with that. And remember, you know, as the saying kind of goes, if you market to everyone, you market to no one. So you really need to determine who you're marketing to. Pricing strategy, it's another area that some people get this right and they've got it happening. Others have determined a price years ago and then they just don't look into it anymore. And essentially what you're doing is ripping yourself off. You know, you need to, this takes into account, I guess, what Tony was talking earlier of understanding, you know, with your cash flow and understanding your fixed and your variable costs and so forth and determining your break-even point. So you need to have an idea on that. And for most people out there, you know, commissions come into play here. You need to build commissions into your pricing. So now's a really good time to be reviewing this if you haven't been doing it already. And there's 6 key things I think that you need to take into account in reviewing your pricing strategy. 1, your fixed and your variable costs. Be aware of those. 2, what's your target market prepared to pay? Might have to do a little bit of research there. And also, what's your competitors' pricing like? Research again. So those things you need to take into account. Also, your commissions. As I said, you need to understand what commissions you'll need to have for whatever your product is, whatever agents you're selling through. 5th thing, your profit margin. What is it that you're after? And then, dare I say it, wouldn't it be nice to have it? Seasonality. You know, some businesses, their price doesn't change with season. Others it does. So that's another thing that you need to take into account. Oops, sorry about that. But those 6 things are key elements in getting your pricing strategy right. And you really want to get this right because you don't want to rip yourself off to some extent and be losing money. Actually, I might just take the opportunity there's a publication out there just to plug, I think it was ATEC and TA, Tourism Australia, that brought this out a few years ago, the Tourism Export Toolkit. There's a section in there dedicated to pricing strategy. So if people haven't already downloaded that and gone over that, if it's something that you're looking at having to work on your pricing strategy, it's probably one of the best things out there at the moment to assist in that. So do yourself the favour and download the Tourism Export Toolkit. Communication, guys. It's really, really important right now to keep all your communication channels open. That's with your customers and with your stakeholders. I've had a number of people saying, you know, there's no point in me doing any promotions at the moment. You know, we can't operate anyway, or there's no market for me. So what's the point? What you got to remember is this isn't forever. You know, believe it or not, things will turn around. And when they do turn around, you really want to be at the forefront of your customers' plans and at their minds. Why give your competitor the edge? They're going to be out there promoting. You should be as well. So it's not just your customers. Make sure your stakeholders know exactly what you're up to as well and where things are at with you. The message really is simple: stay connected. Although maybe the message is slightly different at the moment. You may have been promoting before, book now, come and see what we've got. It's time now maybe to have a slightly different message. And a good example of this, Tourism Australia brought out a video a month or so ago with love from Oz. I keep going to say to Sir with love, but with love from Oz, I think it was titled.
Showing your age, Grant.
Yeah, yeah. Damn school books. If you haven't seen it, check it out, and it'll probably spark some ideas that you can use to keep connected and communicating with your customers and your stakeholders right now. It doesn't have to be in the video format, but it was a really good video. Essentially, what you're wanting to do now is promote to your customers the positives or the improvements that you've been doing in their absence. Have you been doing repairs, or maybe it's just repainting, or you're creating new experiences for them, further training your staff to increase their experience as well. So whatever it is, let them know what you're doing in preparation for their return, and that you're now refreshed, you're ready to provide them with an even greater experience. But whatever you do, don't keep them in the dark, and don't let them forget you. Really important at the moment, I think. And then just a little bit on market sentiment and research. It says it there. How are the various customer segments feeling about future travel? When are they planning to travel? Have expectations and habits changed? These are really important questions, and you do need to keep on top of this, I guess, as we move into that recovery phase. So you need to do a little bit of research with this, get that market sentiment with your traditional markets, and maybe even those potentially new markets. Our industry bodies, once again, Tourism NT, Tourism Australia, they can help with this, and I'm sure TCA and TTE can as well with that sentiment. And I think it was just last week I was watching a webinar that it was with Tourism Australia, and they actually provided a current overview on the sentiment for domestic travel and so forth. So get a hold of that information, know what industry's thinking, know what your customers are thinking out there. So
that was the Deloitte one, wasn't it? Is that right?
I don't know. Was it? It might have actually been. I don't know. I'll have to find. I'll take that on notice and check it out. It was just another one of many that I've been on recently, I guess. But it was. I thought it was Tourism Australia, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yes. No. Tourism Australia had Deloitte on there actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So look. I guess today's session, we're not giving you the hard, fast answers. But what we're trying to do, I guess, is just highlight these key areas that you need to be focusing on to come into that recovery phase. Everything we've been covering today, if you contact the BEC, we can certainly expand on these for your own individual businesses. But they're just important things that you should be looking at as we come through it. And can I just say, for those of you who are lucky enough, I guess, in this upcoming holiday season, what would be normally our traditional tourist season, if you're able to get out there, and look, hopefully there might be a few less restrictions in place, and operators can open a little more. This is probably going to be the only time you get to experience the territory without the tourists. So if you can, get out there, explore, experience, and support the local industry and so forth. I appreciate not everyone's going to be able to, but for those who can, I'd say do it. And just lastly, just a thought to leave you with, something I was thinking the other day. Mother Nature called. She wanted her world back, and she's been refreshing it. So how can you use this thought to promote your own business?
That's a good point.
Yeah, good point, Grant.
Thanks, Grant.
Yeah, I really like what you're saying there, Grant, and just pointing out that the landscape is very quiet at the moment. We don't have many international travellers coming. We won't probably for quite a while. It is a really great time to be creating that video content, that marketing content for the long term. It's pretty rare in Central Australia to get out to Ellery Creek, for example, and be able to take a picture without hundreds of tourists in the background. So it's yeah, it's a really special time for us as locals. And on that, it is an interesting time for marketing, with many businesses' identity relying on international visitors, with many businesses targeting international visitors with their marketing, and with the local markets being more likely to open up. Grant, I don't expect you to have an answer to this question, but it's definitely a point to, I guess, to dwell on is a little bit is how to manage that marketing and that identity when the people that we have access to are not the people that we have been marketing to.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a little bit about us readdressing our mindsets with it, and maybe what can we do? What are our value propositions that may interest them? And I guess there's a little bit of hope there that maybe they're also going, we just want to get out there. We can't go across borders, so what's in our own backyard now?
Yeah, I think that's the thing is that, well, particularly up here in the top end, I think people are, we're not going to be able to go on our holidays outside of the territory, and people are looking for, okay, what can we do within the territory now? And that's one of my clients is a fishing charter who traditionally only has interstate and international people coming over, and he was despondent, but we've helped him with some Facebook posts and getting out to the local market, and he's now got 3 or 4 bookings coming through for once things relax more. He's starting to get local fishermen wanting to come out, and he's got a 4-day charter coming up next week, I think it is, with just locals going out for 4 days to go fishing, because you can take them to spots that they'd never get to. So I think it's not having that restriction that we've never marketed those people. It's understanding that there could be a niche in there that you can now fit into, and how to utilise and tap into that with using your social media or advertising, standard advertising, to try and create that market. So yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to showcase some of the great things that we have in the territory, and some of the great tourism businesses that we have in the territory to local people. And that's a good way to look at it, I think. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Grant, for your summary and overview of HR and marketing. And I guess just to summarise for everybody watching online, we did talk about cash flows as well at the start, taking stock of your business, and especially what you're at right now, and also looking into the near future sustainability of that. We talked about supply chains and potentially looking to diversify your business model, and how does that look like, but also making sure you have your supply chains coming for the looming restrictions being lifted soon. And so that juggling act is what we're going to have to walk through shortly. Exciting, but also nerve-wracking at the same time. We also talked about having a solid foundation for our HR, using this time as an opportunity to look back and work on your business, making sure our operational documents are in place and up to date. So then we can as businesses have a sure foundation to move forward, and making sure that we're ready and we're looking at the right in the right direction for this new normal, as I said. Also, in terms of marketing, which business has ever marketed 100% to their local inter-territory? And so it's a new and exciting opportunity for us to have locals have only one area to kind of have their holidays, and to have their relaxation times. But hopefully, coming out of this, they will also keep that. So hopefully our inter-territory share for locals will continue, hopefully remain strong into the near future. So thanks, Tony, and thanks, Grant. Thank you for your time. And I guess just to summarise, that was our second webinar. Let me bring this up. It's our second webinar for the Power Up tutorials. back again next week. Next week, we're talking about Bookeasy, hooking into Bookeasy. We've got Chris Talenta here, and he'll be talking about what it means for your business to have a relationship with your RTO, to make sure that your Bookeasy information is all up to date and ready to roll for these restrictions to be lifted. Also, at the same time, you can register for next Wednesday's one, which is what that is. But also keep an eye out, keep your finger on the tabs for industry updates. Contact your RTO if you do have any questions. And we will see you next week, same time. So thank you very much.